Hi, everybody. Hi, Carrie.
Hi there. I'm
All right.
excited for this conversation today.
Yes, we are jumping on the bandwagon. We are going to be talking about adolescence.
And not the stage of life necessarily. It is the name of the hit Netflix series
Yep,
that is
limited
out
series.
right now called Adolescence, which,
Yeah,
if I have to say, and it's all over social media, lots of
it's
people talking about it.
it's everywhere. So, we're not hitting on all of the themes that it covers. We are looking at it specifically from a parenting perspective. I do, however, just want to take a minute and say, oh my gosh, the acting
hmm
was incredible. And from a technical standpoint, every episode was done in one take. Crazy. And furthermore, Owen Cooper, the
Age
actor who
boy.
plays, right, the teenage boy, Jamie Miller, it was his first acting debut. I mean, insane. It was
Yeah.
really so well done.
Phenomenal, phenomenal acting, powerful. You, as a parent, could feel their emotion.
Yes.
And we'll just say that if you haven't watched it, go watch it. But this is we're recommending it for parents only. Do
Or
not, I wouldn't sit
I would
down.
say parents first because I feel like if you watch it, you're able to tackle some really big issues with your kids afterwards.
True. But I'm going to say that parents should watch it on their own and then use the information to have open communication with their child, not sit there together and use it as the learning lesson.
Okay. So,
Because I feel like it's a little lazy if that's what you're doing as a parent. I
yeah,
think
but you know what? I don't know if I agree with you because I think some parents don't know how to start that dialogue with their kids. And watching it together, you can pause it and say, has this ever happened to you? Do you know about this?
well, what about as the parent saying, "I watched this series and I learned a few things, and hey, let's talk about it. Have you blah 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 blah," and start the conversation.
Right.
Not
I
I don't
think it could
know.
go either way. I don't know. I'm not against your teens watching it with you after you've viewed it. I do believe that a parent should watch it first to know if this is something that they think their children, teens, or young adults will benefit from.
All right.
But
So let's hop in. Regardless, parents, go watch it, please. And
yeah.
listen to our conversation here because we have a lot to say about it.
Okay. So we're going to try really hard to not give any spoilers if you haven't watched it yet. Just know the premise of the story is a 13-year-old boy is accused of committing a violent crime, and then it looks not so much as a who done it, but how did this happen? Like how did it lead up to, how did this kid go from being a 13-year-old boy to being in jail? Like what were the steps that led up to that?
One of the powerful messages, and we've talked about this before, we've had a therapist on talking about young access to social media and unlimited access to social media. And in this situation, the parents were not aware what the child was engaging in online with friends and not with friends.
Right.
So, and Jessica, we had talked about a really important point. If you could share your thought about
Yes.
the whole stranger.
Oh my gosh. So this is what spoke to me so loudly from watching this series. We spend like the first half of our child's life telling them don't talk to strangers, stranger danger, what to look for, don't go anywhere with somebody you don't know, giving them different scenarios. And then they hit this arbitrary age, whatever age that might be in your family, and we hand them a device that says, "Hello, strangers." I mean, you're opening them to a world of all unknowns. There have to be safeguards placed by parents onto these devices without question. And we've talked about this before too, and I know that I've definitely gotten some kind of,
Feedback.
yes,
Feedback.
negative backlash on this comment, but I believe that parents should have access to their passcodes. It's I believe it's your device until your child is paying for their own devices.
Well,
So,
the other part too is you're giving a device to a child earlier and earlier. We're giving access because you can, and others have it. So I want to be able to be in touch with my child. So now I'm going to give them a phone and I'm going to give them texting capability. But most people are buying iPhones and on their family's plan with unlimited access. And why?
right.
Why do you do that? I think the therapist we talked about before said you don't land over drugs and say, "Here,"
Go
right? Like,
experiment,
go
right.
experiment without any conversation or limits. And, like, should you spy on your child's account? I don't know, right? There are some privacy issues. However, when your child is openly communicating with their friends or other people, there's all of these emotions, right? Like, talk to your kid about how, when they start to say things to you like, "Oh, I'm frustrated at my friend," or "I was left out of," don't just talk about like, "Oh, that sucks. I can't believe they did that to you," but like, how does that make you feel? Understand the emotions that your child is feeling when things happen. Because what we're trying to do is give open lines of communication so they feel comfortable and trust coming to their parent about any of the feelings that they're having, that they're normal.
So you just spoke about what I felt was a huge theme for adolescence, and it's how kids today internalize rejection. Now, this 13-year-old boy, it didn't just start with hopping on social media and all of a sudden something bad happened. I mean, it went back to show that he felt rejected by his dad. And
And other people on a sports team,
right, and
right?
it
He
might
was he
seem
was
here's
made fun of
right, he was
and
made fun of
criticized.
by other people on the sports team, and he looked to his dad for reassurance, and his dad kinda just turned his
Turned
back
his
on
head
him.
away. Yeah,
Yes,
the dad could not watch the criticism
of his
or the
child.
ridicule of his
Right.
child, and instead of dealing with it head on with the child or the other parents, he turned his head the other way because he couldn't handle how it made him feel, right? And imagine if the parent can't handle how it feels, how the
How is
child how the
right.
child's gonna process those feelings, because that's what they look to the adult for.
Okay, and here's what I'm gonna say about that. That father, that parent never dealt with his own childhood trauma, with his own childhood, his own family dynamics. He thought he was doing better because he didn't hit his child. And he what he failed to realize is that he was still emotionally closed off to his kid.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, trauma shows up in so many different ways, and unless you do the work and deal with it, it comes out in another way even if you're not meaning for it to.
right. I mean, we all have traumas,
Well, we all
right?
carry stuff. We
And we
do.
all carry stuff from our own childhood into adulthood. And again, our children do not come with instruction manuals. And we are just doing our best as parents to learn how to be a parent, and for most of us, striving to be the best parent that we can, but yet we don't know who our child is. And as they grow and develop, our role as the parent is to love and support. But is love enough? Is love enough being the parent of a child? What else are our responsibilities?
So clearly these parents loved their child. It was not that. I don't think this child was lacking love. I feel like what this child was lacking was guidance and
And
support,
and presence.
presence, communication. If my one of my children was to come home every day, go up to their room and shut the door, and that was it. At 1 o'clock in the morning, you say, okay, lights out, and they shut their computer off and whatever. That's not going to fly in my house. I need to see you. We are part of a family. We're part that means conversation. That means um, talking about what's going on. Even if you don't want to be there, you're there. You're part of a family. You don't get to just go up to your room and stay there forever. I mean, that's what it
Right.
felt like he was doing. The parents didn't even know that he was out at night.
Yeah.
So, yes, they loved
Right.
him. And yes, they say things like, we couldn't be there all the time. We couldn't do everything. We couldn't be there. And I get it. Parents are busy. Everybody's working. Most families are two income families where both parents are working. That doesn't excuse you from being present in your child's life.
Right. Right. Social media, video gaming, TV, Netflix, streaming, whatever these things are not
A
um,
replacement.
replacement for parental involvement. This isn't something to occupy your child's time, or if this is what they're choosing to do, this should be a sign to the parent that they are avoiding emotions or something else going in their lives because they are using this as the numbing device to just sit and do something else and not communicate, whether it's with
Mhm.
their parents, friends in person, right? In this situation in the Netflix series, the boy was really good at art and used to spend time doing art, and that changed.
Yep.
So for parents looking at signs of, like, cuz these parents could say I had no idea. I didn't know. I didn't know this was going on and that he was being bullied or
Right.
things were being communicated on social media that were having a negative impact on him. But when you start to see your child's interests change, there should be some communication about that to understand, like, why.
Right. What happened? And I feel like a lot of the time, well, in that one episode, just for point of reference here, the series is broken down into 4 episodes. The first episode, the child is arrested. The second episode, you see everything that goes on at the school, which is a whole 'nother shit show. Then you have, everything from the child's perspective, and then the last episode is from the parent's perspective of how this happened. And I feel like the parents were like, what could we have done differently? What could we have done more? And the dad was like, we did everything right. We were good parents. And the mom said, he wanted a computer, so we got him a computer. 13 years old. Set some boundaries. You don't give a 13-year-old a computer to go up and sit in their room for hours at a time.
Well, the
What can
other
you
thing
do?
too is if you realize that your child is up until 2 a.m. at 13,
Right.
what are they doing?
Right. Take the computer, take the device. I'm sorry, these are our rules. You're not allowed to have your computer past 10 o'clock at night. Whatever it is. I mean, there are boundaries and safeguards that need to be in place
Right.
around using devices, especially at such a pivotal age as 13.
Right. And it was brought up in the show, right, that you said the school was a shit show. Like, these kids were running the school. There was such a lack of respect of teachers and administration, and it was just it was awful to watch,
Yeah.
but here comes the question. Is it the school's responsibility to parent or lead in this way? Like, what was the school's responsibility for some of this bullying or out of controlness or
Here's
whatever it is that goes on?
here's my feeling on that, okay? Is it a school's responsibility to parent? Well, that area is definitely a little gray. These kids are in your care for, I don't know, 6, 7 hours a day. So there is the responsibility maybe not to parent, but to guide and to be a disciplinarian. And here's the thing, they're there to teach,
Mm.
to educate. How can anything be done along those lines when they're fighting people on their phones? There was just complete chaos. It's funny because before that specific episode, I was a little on the fence. Should phones be allowed in school? Should there be rules against phones in the classroom? After watching that, there is no place for a phone in a classroom at all.
Yeah.
If I was to say one takeaway from that specific episode, it would be there need to be stricter rules in the classroom with in regards to phones. There
Yeah.
just have to
No,
be.
no, I agree. Right. There's a whole push nowadays for schools to not allow cell phone use during, the education period.
Right.
And, I'm all for it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so much time in a day that they can be spending on communicating with their friends or watching videos or whatever it is that they do in their free time. But school needs to be about education and learning. And
Yeah.
half of what goes on in school nowadays, right, is you're learning how to deal and communicate with other people, how to be social without using your phone as the crutch or hiding in your phone because you feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Everybody goes through it. It's easier for some kids than others to feel confident in their communication skills, but that's what you're learning about being in school. You're learning how to get along with others, how to work with others, how to take guidance from teachers, and boundaries, right? There are rules in a classroom, and that's where some of it starts at an early age, learning scheduling and learning boundaries. So you
Right.
can't take that all away because how do you learn? There's so many parts of developing a child into adult.
Right. And I just, in my personal opinion, a phone has no place in a
It's
classroom.
no,
It just doesn't.
no.
Whatever that means, if it means like keep it in your backpack, zipped until the end of the day, because I know that there are parents that feel it's a sense of security. I need to be able to get in touch with my child.
But
It
what would be so critical to get in touch with your child, right? Like
well,
if there's an actual true emergency, right? What you go through the front office to
right,
get a message to your child. It's a convenience for us about scheduling, about making appointments, about plans. Well, now you're just taking the attention away from the child when they're
right.
supposed to be focused on learning and whatever they're doing in the school
I think it
environment.
just goes back to the whole idea of instant gratification. It's not just kids. Parents want to be able to do it too. I need to oh, I your tutoring lesson changed after school. Let me just text you and tell you. Oh, this happened. Let me just tell them right now so I don't forget. I mean, those are the excuses we tell ourselves. Let me
Yeah.
just let them know that this is going on.
Yeah. All right. So let's get back to the emotion that the parents had at the end of the final episode, right? It was so powerful, and you could feel, right, how like guilty, sad, angry, disappointed. They just
Everything.
were all over the place when they've looked back at, "I wish I would've known." Well, we can't go backwards in our parenting, we can just be where we're at today,
Yeah, and
but I think this is a lesson for everyone, that's why we're saying, like, "Go watch it,"
right.
because we're not saying, like, "Oh my god, you should be picking up on if your child is having violent tendencies." We're not saying that at all. It's just, where can we openly spend more time communicating and listening to how our children are feeling? And then from there, we know maybe how to better support them.
Right. Here's another thing, like, I social media is being used in a way now, social media is not all bad, that's not what I'm saying here, but in that age group, I think it's much easier for a child to be bullied, to feel left out. People are a lot braver on social media than they are in person, so they're more inclined to say things that can hurt somebody, and there's no interaction to see, "Oh, your face just dropped, that I may have just hurt you. I may have just said
Mhm.
something that really hurt you. That wasn't my intent. I was joking," or whatever it is. There's no face-to-face interaction to know what the intent is meant by whatever message they're sending. So you lose that interpersonal connection by only talking to people on social media.
Right. And then the interpretation, like, they're communicating with emojis
Oh my gosh,
and a lot of,
there is a
and,
whole language in emojis that the
and what,
kids know.
right. But what if the kids don't know? Like, or what if they're just newly learning or trying to interpret it in a certain way that might be factual or not, right? The same thing, like, it started with, like, using capital letters or using so many exclamation points, right? You would say, "Oh,
Right.
someone's yelling,"
How does that
right?
happen? Like, how do that's a
I
really good question. I don't know because they have a really hard time learning geometry or Spanish or whatever other subject, but they're very well versed in the language of social media.
y well, okay, I'm gonna say it's because the amount of time
Right.
they're spending there equates to their increased knowledge, right? So
Right.
if we took that same amount of time
And put it
and
into
spent it, or, focused it on education or a subject or Spanish or their sport, they would probably know it or excel in that area. So I think what we're saying is, parents, you are the parents. You're not their friend. You're
Ugh,
not, like, giving them, like, this open access to social media without parameters,
right.
without being in tune with how they're using it.
Mhm.
And go on, I feel like you
No, no, no,
wanna.
no, that's you bring up a whole whole 'nother subject there that I is, a sensitive one. Like, it is okay to tell your child no. It is okay to say, "You're too young for this. I'm not comfortable with you having this yet. Let's work towards responsibility. Let's work towards when would be a good time for you to have this."
Yeah.
It's okay
And
to
it
say that. It's okay to parent your kids.
right. And it is hard. My favorite line is, "No" is a full sentence. Just
Right,
no. However, we know how difficult it is when everybody else seems to be doing something different, or everybody else has one,
right.
says the kid. That's a difficult place for a parent to be.
Can we just talk for a second about that school scene again? Because to me, during the school scene, there were also different styles of parenting pointed out. So you had the actually the suspect, his parent that they weren't even a part of that episode, really. I think it was everybody else in that moment. So, for example, you had the police officer who seemed like he had a very fragmented relationship with his son. He didn't know what was going on in his son's life. His son
Right,
was
'cause
being
his
bullied as
so
well.
explain though,
Um,
his son was a student at the school. Not everybody
oh,
knows.
that's right. His
Okay.
son was an older student. He wasn't in the same grade as he wasn't 13, he was 15. But all throughout the beginning of the first episode, you have his son trying to avoid school, trying to stay out of school. My stomach hurts. I don't want to go. And then you see that his son is being bullied as well in school. People are throwing their garbage at him, making noises at him. And the father had no idea any of this was going on. And he actually comes out and says, I never wanted kids. And he does not know how to relate to his son. However, after all of this happened and he realized what was going on and the chaos of the school and the kids, he took a moment to say to his son, "Let's go grab something to eat." And I'm hoping that that's the turning point for them, where they get their relationship back on track. And I also think that it proves a point that it's never too late. Like, you might say, "Oh, I've never spoken to my kid before. I don't even know how to talk to him." It doesn't matter. Start. Just start today. There's
Right.
never a wrong moment to start communicating with your kid.
Yeah, and that goes hand in hand with the suspect's parents who have this overwhelming feeling of guilt when they look back and realize they could have done something differently.
Right.
So, how, as parents, do we deal with that? Because there are many moments in our parenting that we have those moments like, oh my God, I wish I have a do over, or
Right.
I want to take back what I just said. And for the
So
most part, we can do
right.
that,
And
right? And
those are very different than these parents whose child is facing a
a
very severe
possible
sentence
conviction.
for
Yes.
his crime that was committed. So, what I would say to you're right. There's always time for a do-over until there's not. So, take your time, talk to your kids, and remember it's okay to say, "You know what? I made a mistake. I don't like the way I handled that situation. Can we talk about what I did and how I could do something differently?"
Right. And
All
I
the
think it's
things
okay too, right? When your kids come to you or they're doing something, right? We've never as parents been through that scenario before. Even if we experienced something similar when we were a kid, it's very different as a parent. And times, as we see, right, and are experiencing today with social media, it's very different. When our kids say to us, "You do not know what I'm going through," we don't. So I think it's okay to say, "I don't have the answer, but what I will tell you is I'm in this with you and we will figure it out together."
I love that. Yep. The other styles that they showed at the school that day, you had the 2 friends, the suspect's 2 friends, one of which whose parents sat with him. They gave him instructions. They told him, "Please don't discuss this with anybody else. This is for our family," whatever they said to him. They don't really show it. I'm just assuming what they said to this boy. "Don't talk to this one, don't talk to that one." Then you had the other friend whose parents didn't talk to them at all, who just went about, "All right, fine, the cops were here, they interviewed you," and they had no conversation with this
Right.
kid
Like an
at all.
absent avoidant approach.
Right. Complete avoidance. No support, no what happened there, no communication at all. And then you had the one girl who was a friend of the victim who was petrified of her mother. She seemed like a girl who had been in trouble before at the school. The teacher was trying to parent her and guide her and be there for her. And then once she found out that her parent was called, she took off because she was afraid of what the repercussions were going to be. So that was a parent who we can assume parented from their own place of anger and not listening to their child and listening to your child explain their side of the story or what they're going on, what their perspective was. So I think they
Right.
did a really good
They
job
did,
of
of
just
showing all
exploring,
different types of parenting.
yes, all different parenting dynamics. It was without saying this is a this type of parent or this is a that type. I thought that part was handled brilliantly.
Right. So, in conclusion, I think what we're saying is there's no one way of parenting, and there's no one way that we all set out and then end up, right? Like we evolve as parents. It's our first time doing this. But that's why we're here. That's why Jessica and I are doing what we're doing and doing this podcast to help share information that we've learned along the way. And as we work with our own individual clients, like what have we helped other parents do? And what have we helped them realize on their own in their situation?
Right.
So,
And what strategies and what tools as parents can we use? And then what can we give to our kids to use to show them how to deal with rejection, how to deal with the emotions that they're having? Because I love this. We heard this earlier. Emotions are not good or bad. They just are. It's how we deal with them and how we deal with how they're making us feel that is so important.
yeah.
And kids
So,
need that. They need the tools to learn how to deal with it when they're feeling angry, when they're feeling, um, ostracized, when they're feeling, any gamut of emotions that they're feeling. How do they deal with it?
yeah, and it's important for parents to actually model this behavior too. You can't have a really angry, volatile parent who deals with their frustration and their stress in a very violent, yelling, chaotic manner, and then try to talk to your kids in a way to do something different.
Right,
You have to even, and that's the work of the parent. And that's what's really challenging is even if you've had a certain way that you've handled your stresses and your frustrations, but now you realize that you are the model and you're being watched, right? We have to work super, super hard to find other ways and to demonstrate that and communicate that to our child, right? I had a really frustrating day today. I felt stressed. This is how it made me feel. My heart was racing. I was sweating. But you know what I did? I took a deep breath. I stepped back. I left my computer for 10 minutes. I went for a walk, right? Have these conversations with your children so they can see that it's normal to feel this way.
right.
And that what do you do then when you are frustrated or you are angry or you are sad or disappointed or feeling rejected? Like allow the feelings and allow space to process, but then what you do next?
Right. You are your child's first role model, you are their first teacher, and it doesn't stop. Just because they reach a certain age, your job does not stop. You are their eyes are always on you. Even if you don't think they're listening, even if you don't think they're watching, they are. Give them something to emulate.
All right, on that note, we again highly recommend going to watch Adolescence on
Yes.
Netflix. And we would love to hear from you,
Thank
encouraging all of the feedback that you have, what you thought of it, you loved it, you hated it, what were the reasons, what were your takeaways, what you learned. We want to hear from you.
Yeah. I saw a comment on social media where someone wrote, I actually thought it was really boring. I
Oh,
don't know how you can watch that unless maybe they weren't a parent. I don't know, but I don't know how you watch that and are not like on the edge of your seat and thinking, oh my God, I cannot believe this.
yeah, I don't know. I'm trying not to judge other people's responses to that because it was
Yeah, just
very
boring is not a word that I would
powerful.
ever
Right.
use. Yeah.
It was very powerful and emotional,
You're better
and
than I am, Carrie, and without your judgment. I apologize for if I sounded judgy.
no, 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 I saying I'm trying to reserve mine. I
Yes,
wasn't
yes, yes,
saying that
yes.
I'm not judgmental. I'm just trying to reserve it. Anyway,
Okay.
so give us a comment. Obviously, listen, like, and share. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Parent Coaches Unleashed. And always feel free to
Reach out
reach
to
out
us.
to us on email at info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. And
Thanks for being with
always,
us today.
we appreciate you. Thank you.